Drugs, guns, and gangs are still creating problems in Louisville.
WDRB's Valerie Chin investigates the push to stop all of the crime.
In Louisville particularly, we have a lot of firearms-related violent crime.
Shootings, murders.
It's unfortunate that we're off to a bad start to 2023, and I know that's what the community is concerned about. But what it's important to say is ATF is prioritizing violent crime, LMPD is prioritizing violent crime, as well as the rest of the law enforcement community in Louisville.
We sat down with Special Agent in Charge Sean Morrow with the Louisville ATF to understand the gun crimes happening here. LMPD's latest numbers show non-fatal criminal shootings and homicides are both up this year compared to last year.
We know that there's a fair amount of gang activity in our region. Many times gangs are involved in violent crime. They're involved in armed drug trafficking, and often they're involved in some type of retaliatory violence.
Back in January, we showed you windows and cars hit by bullets near an apartment complex off Breckenridge Lane. Police say more than 600 shots were fired in the early morning hours on New Year's Day. The city says it can't definitively say this was gang-related, so instead, LMPD calls it a shootout between two groups. Police arrested 6 people and recovered 5 stolen vehicles and 8 guns.
When you look at the number of firearm seizures, for instance, in Louisville, the LMPD will take anywhere between, say, 2,000 and 2,500 firearms into custody on an annual basis. Up to 20% of those guns we know were previously reported stolen.
How many gangs are we talking about in Louisville?
From what we see in our investigations and our work with LMPD, but generally we see somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 or 20 active gangs that are operating in and around Louisville.
Compared with other cities, the FBI in Indianapolis says there are about 16 confirmed organized criminal gangs in that area. That means Indy has a larger population than Louisville, but has fewer gangs. The FBI in Cincinnati says its violent crime squad has never publicly released any numbers on potential gangs. The Louisville FBI with LMPD as part of the Kentucky Safe Streets Task Force says it recently helped break up 2 neighborhood gangs here. 16 arrests for the O-Block crew for a drug ring, and the feds say it's one of their largest takedowns in recent Louisville history. The FBI released this poster of the Ross family crew with 5 arrests. Investigators say they were part of a drug trafficking ring in apartments in the Newburgh area.
Is that the root of most of the violence in our community?
Gang crime is certainly attributable to a fair amount of the crime in our communities. The reason that it's problematic is when you have individuals that are working together to commit crime, they're more organized, they have the ability to obtain firearms, to move those guns from one individual to the other. In many of our cases, that it's a relatively small amount of people that are committing a lot of the crime.
And the DEA is working to stop criminal groups too. The agency just finished Operation Last Mile. Over the past year, the DEA says it targeted people affiliated with the Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels out of Mexico, some even here in Louisville, responsible for fentanyl meth distribution. The DEA says those cartels use violent local street gangs and criminal groups to get the drugs to local communities.
There they are right there, right off the skin.
WDRB has shown you drugs easily make their way to Kentuckiana from the Mexico border. For this operation, DEA Louisville agents arrested 137 people in Kentucky, Tennessee, and West Virginia, seized over 1.7 million doses of fentanyl, 554 pounds of meth, and 621 guns.
We live in an area that would be considered a source area for firearms. There are a lot of guns here. There are relatively few state regulations compared to some other states.
The 3 federal agencies working together to try and stop the drugs, gangs, and guns.
Where are all the guns coming from? I would say that they're readily available.
With photojournalist Darius Bowie, Valerie Chin, WDRB News.
And if you have any information about this story or any story you think our Investigates team should look into, you can email us at investigate@wdrb.com.